Welcome back to our channel. And I'm here with my beautiful wife, Kathy.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm Greg. And no introduction is complete without introducing Scruffy. So say hi, Scruffy. Hi. And we're here today to recap our interview with Dan Belcher.
Yes.
And it was a fabulous interview.
It was very nice. He's a fine gentleman. I like him very much.
Yeah, he's a great individual. So we've brainstormed for the last 3 or 4 days some topics to talk about and things we want to cover. I'm going to let you start.
Okay, well, before we
you're the star of the show.
No, I am not. I am not. I don't want to be anything like that. Listen, but I do want to say this. I owe you an apology.
Oh no, what did I do?
Yes, I do, because we made this video and I said, I don't think he watches any of this kind of stuff, but I sat with you as I'm going to say it was a shared event to edit this interview with Dan Belcher, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and you go over segments of the video many times. So
yeah,
you're in there. You're right there with
portions in there where I'm sneaking out something.
And I kind of said that you were not in there, but you are in there. So
excellent. Well, I appreciate the apology, sweetheart. That's great. Are you going to apologize to Scruffy or
Scruffy?
So with that, I mean, the Dan Belcher interview has done so well. Our fans out there in YouTube world, you've really gravitated to this, and you've replied to Facebook posts with so many positive comments about the interview and about Dan's talents and Dan as an individual. And that just made me so happy. I was just really excited to do this recap video to share some of those thoughts and some of the other thoughts.
Yes, and so I wrote a few here. I see this right here. I wrote a few notes, and I'm going to be like using it as a cheat sheet. So should I start? You want to start?
Please, no, it's all
okay. All right. So one of the things that really stood out to us, and we always say it's always positive, because it is. I wouldn't want to have a recap video on me and go, oh no, what is this gonna be? Okay. I found it, and we both made a comment to this, that it seemed like Dan knew early on what he didn't want to do, and how important that is in life. And I think we kind of talked about what Malcolm Gladwell kind of book or study, which I don't remember if it was Blank or Tipping Point, but you elaborated a little bit more on this. So you take it away.
So Malcolm Gladwell wrote in the book Tipping Point about a magic sweet spot of time back in 1955, 54, when the innovators of technology, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs.
It was an identifying cohort of
famous people.
It was 1955. I don't know what to tell you.
And the reason they were innovators is they took a chance because they didn't, the people that were a couple of years older already had houses, cars, young families, marriages, and they felt trapped, and they were in the rat race. And I looked at Dan when he was telling this story, and I thought about this story from Malcolm Gladwell. Dan wasn't in the rat race yet. Dan was a blank slate, and he could choose a different path without it really being a stressful decision. For me, as I was talking about it during that interview, I had said, gee, I was a few years older. I had already gotten my architect's license. I had already bought a house. I already had a wife. I mean, I was essentially pregnant with life.
How about committed?
Yeah, committed.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
And so I thought that would be an interesting topic to kind of think about.
Right.
For people
and of course, as we share these things, the first pass, I'm just going to make a generalized statement. The first pass that we share, I think, is from your own point of view. So, right?
Yeah.
And then that's why, and that's, to grow as an individual, you need to take it, from the micro to the macro. So there may be other reasons for other people on why or how they might identify with the things that they know they don't want to do. Because I think the things that we want to do, we know, and so a little easier.
Right.
And we don't know what we don't want to do until maybe we get a little bit more involved in the things that we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out a little bit more
As
about whatever the thing is and about ourselves.
Right. As we emerge from what I call the illness, there's so much change going on in our society.
Oh, okay. I was going to say what illness, but what, you mean like this whole thing we're going through? Oh, okay.
And I use illness.
Certainly. Okay. Okay. Expound more, because I don't know where you're going with this.
A lot of people right now have a blank slate in their life. What they were doing pre-pandemic and what they have a choice to do post-pandemic.
Right. So on that note, I don't want to cut you off or anything.
Please do.
I am going to refer to my notes. Okay. So, but on that note, okay, so let's look at Dan. So he went to landscape architecture school, and that's its own definitions and program and classes and criterias that need to be met. And so we're going to call that an umbrella. The umbrella in this particular example is landscape architecture school. And so, but this could apply to any type of schooling, in that for him, and of course we're just expounding. It's like you and me just sitting here turning on the record button and just talking. But what I'm going to take a guess at is that his drawing and what did we say? Planning. Right. In that program, he learned to draw and he had to do plans. And those are two very important elements for sculpture, sand sculpture.
Yeah, for sand sculpture.
And so
it was excellent training.
It was. And I'm sure that there's other things that he pulled from that program that taught him discipline. He said that the people that he worked with, that he came in contact with early on, had very strong work ethics and discipline. What do I want to say? I don't know what to say about.
I think it well prepared him. And in the original interview, I had made this comment. I go, no, here's this great education that kind of was thrown to the side. No, it was a great education for sand sculpture.
Right. Yes.
And architecture was a great education for me for sand sculpture.
Absolutely.
And where do you go to school to be a sand sculptor? There's nowhere to go to school to be a sand sculptor.
Right. Okay. So on that note, I think that there's, because our audience is not just sand sculptors. Okay. So on that note, I think that there's a lot of talent within us that may be hiding or hasn't been identified, that we've picked up along the way, that can be used in other fields or practices or something like that.
Good point.
Yes. And, we could talk later. There's more I could say on that. More personal stories.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have to cheat at my notes.
What else?
Oh, his health. Let's talk about health.
Oh
my God, from the minute we had here's what we do. Here's kind of how it works.
Uh-oh.
I think, I don't know, I have bits and pieces of this. Okay.
Is it nap time?
No, for Scruffy it is, but it starts with a phone call, and we kind of have this overview, little mini interview kind of thing off the record. And from the moment we talked to Dan, you could hear the health and vitality in his voice. And then he shared with us that he's running, and Dan, I may not get this right, but was it a marathon or
it was
triathlon?
It was a marathon plus.
I don't know what.
Yeah, and I thought a marathon was something that was a big deal, and now people are actually trying to do a marathon plus something else all at the same time, and that's pretty crazy. And you could see it. Okay, Dan looked great.
Whatever this thing is, okay. And it's just, and the reason why we're not naming it, it's because it's due to our bad memories. Okay, so, but because I made mention that people who run marathons, it's like, I don't know if it's 1% of the population, or and this thing he's doing is less than 1% of the population.
It's
So
huge.
this is a big deal that we all need to get behind and
huge deal.
support, especially at this time that we're all going through right now, when to choose to really go after and support your health right now is probably one of the most important things you can do. And there have been many incidences during this illness time that people went in the house and just hibernated and put on weight. And that's one of the things that they say is like a comorbidity to this whole thing. And so to exercise and to get good rest and to have a good mental outlook and the nutrition and whatnot.
Spoken from a nurse practitioner.
Yeah, it's highly important. And in fact, we ourselves entered into commitments and programs, and you keep track of this more than I do. I don't know how much weight we've lost between the two of us. Somewhere
between 50 and 60 pounds in the last year.
And it's been all, we live in a physical world, not a magical world. So we didn't wiggle our noses and this weight came off. It was every day, commitment every day.
So it really was apparent in one of the photographs I shared in the interview with Dan Belcher. Was a photograph of Dan and I together at Parksville. And I looked at that photograph and Dan and I both looked like different people. I think we were both 20, 30 pounds heavier.
Yes, a much better picture of health. Yes.
Much better picture of health. And I'll put this picture back up and
so
kind of look at this and go, oh my goodness.
Right. And so
you can't really tell now, but I lost
and so at this time, we don't really know what's going on, but let's make this a wake-up call and answer the wake-up call and keep your health intact, get it intact and keep it intact.
That's great advice, Kathy.
And then on that, the next thing I wanted to bring up was the sense of community, because I just thought that was so fun, that little clip of everybody running that night. They had the costume party.
Yes.
I think that was the first evening get together, wasn't it? And just the whole sense of community of artists coming together. I know that this topic had come up during the Todd and Lee interview, and then you and I had talked about it during a recap, wondering if it was, this kind of thing is going on and how it goes on. And yes, it goes on.
Right.
And each event probably has its own ways and methods of letting community come together. And even now, when people can't come together as much as they did, there's still the social media. What you had some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I have to admit, I have grown closer to several artists through social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, this channel, because that was the only choice. It was a plan B, and thank God for at least this plan B. We've been able to share what we've been doing here at Arcasand. We've been able to share, our sandcastle tip of the day for the community who really wants to get out this spring and summer and play, especially those back east or in cold weather climates that are watching us out here and going, I really can't do anything right now because my sand pit's frozen, or, it just isn't going to happen. But that sense of community, I'm really looking forward to that happening here again soon, in person, not just through our YouTube videos and our interviews with artists.
Social media is like a couple, I don't know, degrees away of, from being right there with the person. So, okay, so then in the interview, toward the end, you had made some type of mention of kind of each one of these interviews starts tying like a fabric together.
Right.
So you had some thoughts on that? I jotted down a few thoughts. Okay.
I do that, as one artist says, hey, Kent Trolin, our first interview, said, hey, I remember meeting Dan Belcher in Maryland. And then we get to interview Dan Belcher, who says, I remember meeting Kent Trolin in Maryland. And then Dan Belcher's story goes, you know, to Harrison and all the things and people there. We're going to get into that more with our next interview guest, who I can't wait to share who it is. We're not going to. You're going to have to wait and see who our interviewee is, but he's somebody who's competed up at Harrison Hot Springs. And then to interview Todd, and he talks about different artists that are going to be talking about Todd when we talk to them. And it's all one big fabric. And we're going to be talking to artists not only here in the US, but we're going to venture overseas and talk to some people from Europe, and I'd like to think Asia too. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see this network weave together as time passes, because, you know, there's like that first little sparks that happened here in San Diego and California, but now it's spread all over the world, and there's stories from everybody all over the world for how they got in and how they were introduced to this art form.
Yes, yes. You're making me think of something else. You're making me think of how people's lives get intertwined that they don't even think about. So I'm just going to give you a short example, because you made me think of this as you were talking. So our daughter is getting a PhD in chemistry, and one of her first, I don't know what you want to call it, advisor, teacher, you know, you're all curious. I went and looked, you know, as a parent, I looked him up and I won't get this exactly right. I'm just saying this as an example, but I'm like, hey, you know, he's a grandson of Max Planck. Okay, so what does that mean? So what that means is there's like family trees for like professionals, call them professional family trees. And I just made up those whole names and everything in the gram where this person would have been on this, but he trained under someone who trained under someone who trained under someone. And so in these professional sciences, they create these, you know, I'm going to name it a professional family tree, and who trained under who, and how, you know, these crafts are passed down. And I think that it's important to know that how everybody interacted and came together, and hopefully by doing these interviews, we'll kind of start emerging some of these artistic professional family trees, let's call it that. And then so that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, was like the evolution of sand sculpting. And you know, kind of started our historical journey with Kent and then Todd, and Todd shared with us, and I may not get this right, and I may not get this whole thing right, but we're on the general path, okay? That, for instance, Michelangelo, when he did the Pieta, he did it in sand and or terracotta, and the terracotta piece actually does exist. It's in a private collection, but not too far ago, it was on exhibit in Paris. So, but before, and then Dan showed us a picture of a gentleman who had been doing sand sculpting in the UK in the 1940s. And then again, Todd gave a name, and then we went out and did our little research and found some photographs of someone from the 1890s in San Francisco. Now, they had worked in other places too, but that particular photo we found was from San Francisco. So on that note, chapter 1 is still wide open, because we don't really know who, what, when, where, how.
Right.
This got started.
That guy in the 1990s was Taylor.
You were going to know the name. I confess to being terrible with names.
But,
so
he's been recognized as the guy who was at Atlantic City on the boardwalk doing sand sculptures there. And
this is the person from the 1890s. Yes. Yeah, they had gotten around quite a few places.
And it had taken off until the government bureaucration came in there and said, you can't do this.
Did you read this? Did you did more study? I didn't do any. I just found some of the photos, and
they were trying to make them permanent with concrete. Next thing you know, the beach is filled with these half eroded concrete carcasses of
Oh, yeah.
semi-permanent.
absolutely. Oh, yeah, that,
And
you know what,
you can
that's,
see how that would be frowned upon, I think.
right, but that is like a discussion. You're bringing up a topic right there that's gonna move us into our next topic.
Okay.
Because that topic about making it more permanent, that's like, could it be a debate? The team who presents making it permanent and the team who presents making it not permanent. Okay, but on that note, so Dan clarified something for me that I don't know, I didn't understand, and I got some really a better picture and more clarification. And that was the idea of, I want to get this right. Let me get this right. What is it? Oh, sport competition versus art competition, and how including your pound up versus having your pound up
Off the clock.
already
Already done for
done.
you, or done off the clock.
or off the clock. Yeah, there's many different ways. And let me back up, because I know you're going to jump in here. Competitions have different rules on how this pound up presents itself. And so that in itself could be, I didn't realize that it was looked at by some as sport and by some as art.
Yeah.
And so the idea of how the pound up presents itself would be a large part of that debate. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, the old style 10-man contest, you had 4 hours, 5 hours in some cases, required a tremendous amount of endurance. You had to shovel your butt off for the first about hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were any further than an hour and a half into the event and you weren't carving, you wouldn't have enough time to do the art part. But you carry water, you shovel sand for an hour and a half straight, as fast as you can, and tell me you're not going to be tired. I mean, when you run a marathon, the top marathon runners finish it in 2 hours, 3 hours, right? Well, essentially you've ran a marathon and now you're supposed to do art. And I think Dan talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm sweating, I'm going to puke, and now I'm supposed to do art,
Right. So that that got clarified for me, but I could see how that debate could go on. That's like, everybody, it's evening and let's pour drinks and let's talk that one over. So I guess it's just the idea of directing, planning, the oversight of your entire project versus having a predefined, which would be totally equal.
Right.
Let's say, 5 tiers of forms
in a pyramidal shape.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's something that I kind of like about that as I gain age in this world is, to move
right.
20 tons of sand.
Exactly. It starts
to become.
It's, as we said earlier in the video, it's the point of view and
Mm-hmm.
how, I guess maybe it might depend on, it might determine what competitions you might want to enter or not. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. This is the first time I'm just sitting here thinking about this. I don't.
Certain types of competitions and others might not.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there was one story that Dan shared after we hit the stop record button in our interview. And so I didn't capture the story, but he sent me a couple of photographs. And I wanted to share that story with everyone the best way I could, just so that you could appreciate these two pictures. It's a before and an after photograph. Todd Vanderpleim and Dan Belcher and others probably worked on a huge sandcastle in a shopping mall. And we're talking about one of those that exceeded 20, 25 feet tall, as you can see by these photographs. And the mall owner loved it. And it was, I think, coming on Christmas. And the mall owner said to Todd, hey, I want to put lights in the windows like you did over there in that sand sculpture, in Santa Monica Place or wherever he's put lights in the windows. So he calls Dan Belcher and says, Dan, go back and put lights in the windows. And The way you put lights in the windows back then was you had a long string of Christmas lights, and there'd be, a light every, I don't know, foot and a half or so with a bunch of wire. And you would take a string of these Christmas lights, you'd plug it in and you'd drag it up the pile, and you would strategically cut grooves in the sculpture, hide the wires, and try to get one little light to be inside the window, and then heal it all back up. Well, take a look at this picture and see all the lights in this castle, and empathize with Dan for the couple of weeks he spent transforming this sand sculpture into a lighted sand sculpture. Very impressive. Now with these little mini portable LED candle lights that you can actually remote control, it's a lot easier. You just carve the windows bigger and put them in. But I thought that was a fabulous story, and indicative of the wow factor that our clients have always asked for. They want to provide something that nobody's seen before. And I think that's what that's about. And I still like playing with lights in my sculptures. I still want to innovate with my sculptures and lighting.
Absolutely. And so I don't know if you want to share, but on that note, we have some new design innovation that we're going to be working on. The giant castle out front is going to come down, and what would you say?
Yeah, so we're going to do a whole new
platforms
series.
And
yeah, a whole new series on our sandcastle tip of the day is coming up. We're going to create a sculpture. I think I'm calling it Water Goddess. And
Water Goddess.
Goddess.
Oh wait, what's with the T on the end?
Goddess. Like, the god.
Like a goddess?
Yeah, goddess.
ESS?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Water goddess? Yes.
And it's evolving. I'm continually doing sketches for it, but it's going to be built on some new platforms we're designing and building now for them. And it's going to be a different exploration into sand sculpture instead of always being a sandcastle.
Right. We'll talk more about that when we get it all completed, but there'll be a series of tip of the day
on how we did it.
Yes.
So stand by for that.
So just to close out,
yes, please.
Dan, we can't thank you enough. We really enjoyed doing the interview with you, and you have a ton of support and people behind you. It's like everybody likes Dan.
And,
right?
And we can
a
see
lot
why.
Of response and very good. I mean, it's just reassurance.
Yeah, Dan, you're a phenomenal artist. And like I said before in the first interview, I've been inspired by how you've grown in this art field and become one of its leaders, and keep on producing and creating because we all grow from that.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you, Dan. So with that, I want to remind everybody here out in our YouTube audience to subscribe, to like this video. In fact,
hit the bell, write a comment.
A bigger message, though, I think, is to our fans out in Facebook and Instagram that really don't have a YouTube account. We're noticing when we look at the analytics that our likes and subscribers are watching 5% of the video time. The other 95% are from people that are not in the YouTube community. And what we need you to do is, if you're watching these videos outside of YouTube and you really can't like it, you really can't subscribe to our channel, and you're just kind of watching it through Facebook, we need you to get a Google account, log on to that Google account, actually like our video in the YouTube app, and subscribe to us in the YouTube app. That's how we get our message out to you and the artist community, is by being liked and subscribed to, so that we can build some traction here for the art of sand sculpture and bring better content to you and encourage the art of sand sculpture and elevate it in the world of the artist world. I'm trying to say it.
Yeah. I think you got it.
Did I do okay? Am I getting the message
so
out? So with that,
Scruffy's
gotta say goodbye
to you. And we're gonna say goodbye too until next time.
Until next time, thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.